Well, Ligia, my watch just struck 1 o'clock. You want to go ahead and get started for real?
Let's do this.
All right, cool. Well, good afternoon, everyone, if you're on the East Coast, and good morning if you're on the West Coast or somewhere in between. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Launching a Planned Giving Program for Your Small Shop. And my name is Stephen Shattuck, and I'm the VP of Marketing here at Bloomerang, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. And just some housekeeping items before we begin. Just want to let everyone know that we are recording this presentation, and I'll be sending out the recording as well as the slides to you via email later on this afternoon. So if you have to leave early, or perhaps you want to review the content later on or share it with a friend or team member, you'll be able to do that. So just look for an email from me later on this afternoon. And as you're listening today, please feel free to chat in any questions or comments throughout the presentation. I'll see those, and our guests will see those, and we're going to save some time at the end for just as many questions as we can answer. So don't be shy about that. Please send in your comments, your questions throughout the next hour or so. And you can follow along on Twitter with us with the hashtag Bloomerang, and our username is @BloomerangTech. We'd love to see your tweets. And if you're listening today via your computer, if you have any trouble with the audio, dial in by phone. Usually phone is better quality. If you can do that, just check the email from ReadyTalk that was sent out around noon today, and it should have a phone number that you can dial into. And just in case this is your first webinar with us, just want to say a special welcome to you. We do these webinars just about every Thursday. But if you're also new to Bloomerang, Bloomerang is a donor management software provider. We have some great donor management software, and if you're interested in that or want to learn more about us, you can do that. Just check out our website. You can even download a short video demo. Don't even have to talk to a salesperson if you don't want to. So check it out. Check us out if you're interested in that. We'd love to talk to you afterwards. So I want to go ahead and introduce today's guest. I am so excited to have Ligia Peña here with us. Ligia, how's it going? Thanks for being here.
Going great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we met, I think, what was it, 13 months ago at AFP, and I got a big hug from you, and we've been buddies ever since. And I'm super excited for you to be doing a webinar. We've been talking about this for a while, and it's good to have you here. Just in case you guys don't know her, someone you should know. She is actually the Global Legacy Manager over at Greenpeace International. New job for her. I think actually that's the most impressive title of anyone we've ever had on our webinars. So awesome for you. She's been working with nonprofits for over 14 years, specializing in education, mental health, environment, and at-risk use to international NGOs. She's also the author of the Small Shop Fundraising Chapter in the second volume of Excellence in Fundraising. So check that out if you don't have a copy of that. She's also very active in the Canadian nonprofit sector specifically. She's the co-chair of the board of directors of Girls Action Foundation. She also serves on several committees at AFP International, and for the last 5 years she's served on the Quebec chapter of AFP. She's also a member in good standing of AFP and the CAGP. So, Ligia, I'm not going to take any more time away from you. I'm excited for you to get us started with planned giving. So take it away, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephen, and welcome, everybody. Just a little disclaimer. You're probably wondering, what is a big shop fundraiser talking about small shop fundraising? Well, I've only been in this position at Greenpeace for 3 weeks. But before I was a small shop fundraiser, so I know exactly what you are all going through. So that's what I wanted. That's my little disclaimer. So welcome and thank you for taking part in this important webinar. And I say important because as small shop fundraisers, I know that we are pulled in all kinds of direction and always asked to do more with less and trying to raise more money. And planned giving is always something that we leave off at the end to do when we're going to have time. And at the end of the day, we don't have time. So what I'll be talking about is little things you could do and how to get started. But before we get started on talking about establishing a planned giving program for your small shop, Let's do a little pop quiz. So you should have the ability to answer these questions. There'll be a pop-up, I believe, comes up. So the first quiz, and we'll be answering these as we go along, and I'll be giving you the answers, is the definition of plan giving is making a gift with the donor in the right way, at the right time, with the right purpose. Is that true or false? Yes or no? Oh, answers are coming in really fast. This is great. So right now there's about 249 people on this webinar, and we've got almost everybody answering. Here's the funny thing. The funny thing is, we've all, said and repeated many times, the good gift is the right people, the right person, right donor, right time, et cetera, right? In this case, the answer is false. Why? Well, because a planned gift really is donor driven in the sense that they're the ones that will make the gift when they are ready. It doesn't always have everything to do with you asking the right person at the right time and all that. So all you can do as a plan giving professional or as a fundraiser is let donors know that what ways that they could give to the organization. But we'll go into a bit more details about that throughout the presentation. So, ready for the second one? Let's go for the second question. Okay, here we go. From the list below, pick out the correct statement about plan giving. What is the motivation for a donor to give a plan gift? Is it motivation? Or is it plan giving always made after the person's death? Or are bequests by will the most common? What say you? A few more seconds to answer this. And those of you who said bequests are the most common are completely right. Absolutely. Motivation, meaning tax or financial benefits, are not at all a reason to make it is not the number one reason why people make a gift, a planned gift. Okay? And not all planned gifts are realized after the person's death. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So good job, everyone. I'd say out of 206 responses, 164 said that bequests is the best answer. All right, next question. Before starting your plan giving program, a rule of thumb is that you need a minimum of 100 annual donors, experience soliciting major gifts, or a lawyer and accountant on your board. What do you think? Seconds. Oh, this is interesting. All done with the answers? All right, so the answer that the majority of you have responded is the second one, experience soliciting major gifts. And I'm sorry to tell you that is not quite the case. The number one answer is having 100 annual donors and 1,000 age 50 or plus. Of course, that number could vary from one organization to the next. But the reason being is that it's really about passion and commitment to the cause. A donor leaving a gift in their will or signing up to a life insurance is really about how they feel towards your organization. And if you don't have critical mass of donors who have been giving annually and are of a certain age, then whether you have experience soliciting major gifts or you have an accountant or lawyer on your board has absolutely no value whatsoever. So how's that for interesting? Let's see. Next question. Which one of the following goals would not make sense for your year one in establishing your plan giving program? Creating a case for support, develop basic policies and procedures, solicit board for their own plan gifts, raise $100,000 in new plan gifts, or develop it and implement a marketing plan. So what would not make sense as a goal for your first year? What do you say? Okay, I think this is pretty much a given. Everybody's saying raising a $100,000 plan gift. So that makes absolutely sense because we all know that the majority of plan gifts will be realized years after the time that you solicit it. So to say that you're going to be able to raise $100,000 this year after establishing your plan giving program makes no sense. You don't know when the money's going to come in. It could take years before they come in. So that's very good. You guys are doing really well. That's amazing. All right, next question. Has it come up? Hear this? The slides are not moving. Here we go. All right, so when it comes to plan giving, is it important that, oh dear, the question got cut off here. When it comes to plan giving, it's important that your behind-the-scenes administrative systems are in order. Pick out the most important element that should be in place. So basically, your back of the house has to be set up and in order, okay? So the answers are already coming in. Oh, that's great. The results are coming in. So this is different. Results are coming in and you're seeing answers where we are. So donor ticker system, ensuring gifts received are and acknowledged, yes. That's good. Yeah, so you guys got the answers. There you go. So the number one answer is ensuring that gifts are received and acknowledged in time. And that goes for everything in fundraising anyway, right? So, I mean, this is nothing new. All right, next question. All right, so this is a long one. Your organization might consider partnering with a local community foundation so you can have an endowment fund. So we often talk about plan giving and endowment funds. We'll talk about this a little bit in greater detail later on. And all community foundations share these features. They're public charitable organizations. They hold permanent endowment funds. They support community organizations within a defined geographic area and can legally hold endowment funds for other registered charities. Is that true or false? What do you say? True. Exactly. All right. Good job, everybody. Yes, that is true. So if the intention that if in your organization you decide that you want to establish an endowment fund, but it's too much to manage in your own organization, which is sometimes the case in a small shop, then partnering with a local community foundation is the best idea. They'll manage it on your behalf. And usually because they have a lot of bulk business, then they can get better administrative fees for the investments than if you were to go do it on your own. So there are some advantages to that. There can be some disadvantages. It's up to you to assess that, do that an assessment with your community foundation. All right, so that's that was our quiz. I hope it wasn't too difficult. You guys did really great, so I'm very pleased, and it's nice to see that you guys kind of really understand what we're talking about. So here are the definitions of plan giving. And so AFP, according to the AFP dictionary, which if you're a member of AFP, you can download it in the members, in the resources area of the AFP website. It says it's a systematic effort to identify and cultivate a person for the purpose of generating a major gift that is structured and that is integrated, that integrates soundly personal, financial, and estate planning concepts with the prospect's plans for lifetime or testamentary giving. Plan gift has tax implications and is often transmitted through legal instruments such as a will or a trust. Plan gifts are more than just a will. The CAGP, which is a Canadian Association of Gift Planners, and I'm sure in the U.S. there would be also an equivalent of a professional association that specializes in gift planning. It says gift planning is a donor-centered process of planning charitable gifts, whether current or future gifts, that meets philanthropic goals and balances personal, family, and tax consideration. Between the two, I personally prefer the CAGP definition. But what does that mean? Like, is it not super technical and dry and heavy? Don't worry. Basically, at the end of the day, a planned gift is just another vehicle for donors to contribute to your organization. Their characteristics are that they're mostly, not all, but mostly future gifts. So they may not be realized right away, and that's why sometimes accounting for them and including them in your budget can be a bit challenging. Although we do tend to include gifts of stocks as a planned gift, so you can consider, so that usually is realized right away. And other characteristics of a planned gift is they're usually from assets as opposed to revenue. So as opposed to the annual gift or monthly giving or even a major gift that usually is immediate cash that is doled out on the spot, most planned gifts are from assets, assets that the donor holds and has accumulated. They are usually also very highly personal because seeing as it comes from assets, that means that the donor has to evaluate what they are worth, what they have in terms of at their disposal in terms of current and future assets. And so that's why, going back to that initial question at the beginning of the quiz, is that they're very donor driven because they need to do that analysis internally. It's less spontaneous than a one-time gift or a monthly gift. It's donor-driven in timing and type, so the type of planned gift they will make will depend on their own current personal stage that they are in their lives. So if they're young, it could be a life insurance gift. If they're older, it could be an annuity or a bequest. And at the time, where they are in their lives in terms of financially, but also what's going through their life. So there's these things to consider, and also they can be revocable. So there's this misconception that planned gifts are irrevocable, but that is not the case. For instance, and I'll give a very honest example is my own. I had put an organization in my will when I first did years ago, and then I felt that they weren't respecting me as a donor, and it just really left a really bad taste in my mouth after a few things that happened with that organization, and I removed them. And so that means that you have to be very careful how you treat your planned giving donors so as to make sure that you can stay in their good graces. So what happens next? So what are the different planned giving vehicles? So you've all heard of bequest. You've got a specific bequest as an option. So donors can make a specific bequest in their will. Say they will give you $5,000 out of their assets when they pass away. It could also be residual or contingent. So residual would be a percentage of whatever is left over after they've paid all their bills and their taxes, and that the specific requests have been paid out. Whatever is residual from their assets is what you would get. And contingent could be also, and this has happened to me when I was working for an NGO years ago, that it could be contingent on someone else passing. So, for instance, the donor can say, "I bequeath my entire estate to my spouse," but but in order for the organization to receive it, you have to wait until the spouse passes away. And so that's a contingency one. So then you've got life insurance gifts. And so, let me go back to bequests. What's important to know about bequests is that oftentimes the target donors will be your older donors. So if you have information about the age of your donors in your database, and I know in the U.S. it's a lot easier to have that information, access to information for U.S. charities is a lot easier and better. In Canada, we have very, very strict privacy laws, and so unless a donor gives us their year of birth, or if the organization asks the donors, well, then it's really impossible for us to know the age of people. There's an advantage for you fundraisers out in the U.S. Life insurance is usually targeted to younger donors. I mean, you can also have older donors making a gift through a life insurance, but if it's a new life insurance, because premiums will be cheaper when you're younger, usually that is the target age, so sometimes around the age of 35 to 55. So different ways that someone can give a gift of life insurance would be through a transfer of property, so a transfer of ownership. So a donor has a life insurance policy and paid off, they can then transfer the ownership to your organization. They can also give you an existing policy, so they're probably still paying premiums on it, and they can pass it on to you as well. And the last one would be a donation of a new policy. So they decide to take out a life insurance on themselves and designate it to your organization as the owner and the recipient of the benefit of the life insurance. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both, and there's a lot of considerations in there based on, the company that they ask for and the state of health. But those are really easy, simple gift vehicles that donor can. Now the next part, so the other tools could also be charitable gift annuity, charitable remainder trust, ecological gifts, strip bonds, residual interest, RSPs, RIFs, that's in Canada. I know that there's an equivalent in the U.S., basically retirement plans, etc. So we're not going to go into the details of those because those are much more complicated. And as a small shop fundraiser, you don't need to know everything. Perhaps the biggest advice I can give you when it comes to setting up a plan giving program is you do not need to be a financial expert. You don't need to be an accounting expert. You just need to understand the language, okay? So take that pressure off of you and don't start feeling like you need to start offering all of this, okay? All the organizations I've worked at that were small shops and that we set up a plan giving program, we only started with bequests. The reason being is it's the easiest one. And why would you want to make it more difficult for yourself? Start with bequests and then grow as you move forward. As you start developing more, you're developing your own knowledge of plan giving, and also have more resources at your disposal. Okay. So, what happens now? You have all of this. You're kind of freaking out right now. Take a deep breath. We're going to get started. So, ask yourself before launching into plan giving, Should every organization set up a plan giving program? Well, yes and no. So the reason why I say yes and no is you have to think, if you're working for an organization that is trying to address a particular problem there is that will take a long time to solve. Let's say you're trying to eradicate poverty. This is not something that's short term. This is something long term. If that is the case, then yes, establishing a plan giving program makes sense because of the long term perspective of your organization. But if you're working in an organization that has a short-term vision of the problem, so a specific problem it's addressing, and you're looking at it, you're looking at this issue being sorted and resolved in a defined period of time, then maybe it's not worth it. Okay, so you want to consider this, and I would say perhaps the majority of organizations actually do have a long-term vision or are addressing issues that are long-term. So then, yes, it would make sense. So now, when's the time to start? Yesterday was the right time to start, I would say. This is reason being is that we've been talking, and everybody talks about the incredible wealth transfer that is happening, that will happen in the next year in the next 10 to 20 years. Therefore, you can't wait 10 years to set up your plan giving program because it can take up to 5 to 10 years for some of the gifts to start coming in. So if you wait 5 or 10 years to get it started, it's going to take another 5 or 10 years before it starts giving you the fruit of your labor. And by then it might be too late. So let's start now. So we talked a little bit before about plan giving versus endowment program. What's the difference? Well, the plan giving program has these vehicles that we talked about before, so the bequest, life insurance, annuities, etc. An endowment program or an endowment fund, basically most of the time endowment funds are funded by plan giving products, by plan giving gifts that were donated. But they can also be funded with just major gifts. It really depends. So your organization might choose, and this is something to consider, you might choose to say, well, for all plan gifts that come in, we will put them all into an endowment fund. And so that could be one of your key selling points when you talk to donors about making a gift in their will, for instance. You can tell them, well, we're going to take the money, but we're not all going to spend it right away. We're going to invest it all into an endowment fund, which will give us that stability, that fund that you can work with for years to come. Or you can decide to endow a portion of the gift. So in discussion with senior management and with your board, in your gift acceptance policy, you might want to say that 80% of all gifts in will be endowed, and the other 20% will go towards your annual plan, towards your annual campaign. So that is a decision that you have to have. That's a conversation you need to have with your board and your senior management to decide and see if an endowment fund is something that is necessary and would help your organization. So then what happens? You've been green-lighted, the board, the senior management on board, all your board members are on board. What happens now? How do you get started? So the first thing to think is that plan giving is like any other fundraising program. It requires timing, it requires thought, it requires strategy, and it requires marketing. So you want to first point, perhaps you might want to establish a gift planning committee or an endowment committee or a separate board within your board. You'll want to draft policies and guidelines. So what type of plan gifts will you be soliciting? So if all you can do is our bequest, then that's what you want to stick to. What are the criteria for accepting gifts? What is the administration behind the gift? And what kind of recognition do you want to offer your? Now, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work and this is too much. Here's a news flash. A lot of other organizations are doing this. They already have their policies. The best way to start is to do some research. Reach out to other organizations. A lot of the times, a lot of the tools that I've developed were based on, they were inspired by other organizations, what they had in place. And you'd be surprised how many professionals will be happy to share their policies, their forms, all of their back of their house stuff. They'll be happy to share that with you. And then you just adapt it based on your own needs. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from scratch. There are plenty of examples out there. Just Google all these things and you will find them. And if not, just reach out to your fundraising colleagues in other shops that have plan giving programs already established and get that from. If you do decide to have a gift planning committee, you'll have to make sure that they approve all these policies and all these procedures, and then move forward. And so you can, and then you want to have your terms of reference and prepare sample bequest language to give to donors and frees. Find that you might need some funding for your program, because obviously marketing tools you will need some funding. So finding small budget to do plan giving. So contrary to popular belief, you will have donors think that when a bequest comes in, they'll think that, oh my gosh, this is free money. We didn't do anything about it. Nothing could be farther from the truth. It does require work, and it does require some investment. Does it cost as much as setting up a direct mail plan? Absolutely not, but it does require time and money. And of course, the biggest element is a comprehensive marketing plan. So you can start integrating plan gifts. Well, let's just say very specifically, you can start integrating into your overall fundraising plan and your marketing plan. And creating in-house literature, so a brochure or a handout. And really, you don't need to go and spend a whole lot of money on Word. Just print it out, make it nice and pretty, and easy. You're off to the races. So what if you don't meet these criteria? We talked before, we mentioned before that ideally in a perfect world you want to have approximately 100 annual donors and a good base of committed donors. Now, there could be a lot of, some people might not agree with that amount. Some people might think that it's too much, or it should be more. Listen, really at the end of the day, what I would say to you is if you have a bulk of donors who have been giving to your organization for several years and you've got a monthly giving program, you've got a basis to start. You don't need to wait until you have 1,000 donors or even 100 donors. As long as you have donors who have been committed to your cause, who continually give, and it doesn't have to be a very large amount of dollars. It can be just someone that gives $25 on an annual basis, or someone that makes a $10 monthly gift and who's been doing that for years and years. They are prime prospects. Why? Because they are committed to your cause. It's all more about commitment and dedication to your organization than anything else. So a perfect example that I like to tell people is when I was managing the major gift and plan giving program for an NGO years ago. I received a $500,000 bequest, and this was 100% of this woman's estate. So she had nobody. She didn't have. She never married. It didn't look like she ever married. She didn't have children, and she bequeathed 100% of her estate to the organization. which came out to a little over $500,000. And when I looked at her donation history, she had made maybe 3 or 4 donations ranging from $25 to $50, and that was it. So, for all intents and purposes, she didn't stand out as someone who would have been a typical bequest prospect. But she clearly was touched by the organization and really was committed to doing that, to making a bequest. So basically what I'm saying is every donor can be a bequest prospect. So never underestimate the power of someone's commitment to your organization. So how will you fund it? Well, you should. It really should be integrated in everything else. It should not be something that is done on the side as we'll give it a push for 1 month and then let it lie. It's something that should be integrated completely in your fundraising plan. So figure out. So what you'll want to figure out is what kind of marketing materials do you need to develop? Is it a brochure? Is it a new newsletter? If you're not doing a newsletter, then maybe a newsletter could be something. And even just writing articles in your newsletter. It could be buck slips that you can include in your direct mail. So identify the different tools you need to develop and then fundraising plan. So then how do you recognize these gifts? Okay, and I know I'm jumping forward a lot because now you're thinking, well, I still haven't set up my plan. How am I going to recognize them? Well, here's just very quickly. When you've got bequests, when they're realized, obviously it's the total amount of the gift that you count for, and the recognition should be as with any recognition you would give to any other donor. You might want to consider establishing a heritage society or a special. You probably want to consider establishing a special group or a special recognition club for your plan giving donors. When they commit to your organization, but also when the gift is realized. When you've got bequest expectancies, so now you're rolling, you started getting donors being interested in making a bequest, then what you can count in your fundraising reporting is the number of expectancies, and then your evaluation of what it could be. Okay, so something that some fundraisers do is when you've got an expectancy, a lot of people, what they'll do is a lot of fundraisers will ask the donor to provide a copy of their will, or maybe even just the one page that of the will that states that they are making a bequest to your organization. So here's the reason why. This is an example from one of my colleagues, is that his organization received a bequest to his organization, but the way the organization's name was written was the name of the organization and then sort of a chapter of the city where they were in. What happens is that there is no chapter in that city where the donor was in. So they had to go back to the lawyer. Now the lawyer had to demonstrate to the court that the intent of the donor was to make a gift to that organization, even if the way the name was written was incorrect, which essentially would make that bequest null and void. So what that does is obviously it delays the disbursement and it makes it a lot more complicated. So you want to make sure that that your donors have written the name of the organization properly, and that their intent is that if they decide to designate it a specific gift, it is for a program that you actually do. So remember how I mentioned that $500,000 gift before to the NGO? Well, the part of the story that I didn't tell you is that unfortunately we weren't able to keep it because she ended up designated it to a program that the organization never managed, never did ever. It wasn't even in its mission. So the organization couldn't keep the gift. So unfortunately I had to then turn around and try to find another organization with a similar vocation, but that had a program specific to what her demands were. And so we had to give the gift away of nearly $600,000, $584,000. And it broke our heart, but we needed to respect that. So I'm just seeing a few questions here, and I'm sorry, I've been going on and on and on and on, and I think I've missed a few questions. So one question that's being asked is, how do I feel about cold calling a donor base about plan giving? Well, here's the thing. If they're already your donors, it's not really a cold call, now is it? So I would say absolutely. If you've identified them as a potential plan gift donor, then yes. So here's a trick of the trade. This is what I did when I started working at the organization I was at before. It was a small school for deaf kids. I was the director of development in a one-person development department, right? So I was alone. So I wanted to establish a plan giving program, but I didn't know my donors. So, and as a rule, I always call donors to say thank you. All donors, regardless of what the amount. Even if they made a $5 gift, I pick up the phone and I call them, and then I write a handwritten thank you card. That's just how I am. Not everybody wants to do that. It's very time consuming, but that's how I roll. What that helped me do is identify who the donor, who were my bequest prospects. Because I reckon, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm just telling you, I'm going to be really honest. If they picked up the phone in the middle of the afternoon and their voice was a little shaky and they were happy to hear from me, kept me on the phone for a long time because they wanted to tell me their story, then they were a prospect. Because I figured they're not working, they're at home in the afternoon. Someone who's older sometimes feels isolated, and they are happy. They welcome the call, and so they were my prospects, and that's how I built a long list of bequest prospects. So really, it's not about it's if they are already given to your organization, it's not a cold call. So yeah, if you have a list of people that you think would be a good prospect, pick up the phone and say, hey, let's obviously you don't start asking them right away, but you start the conversation and then try to see if you can go and see them, go meet with them. That's the advantage we have as small shop fundraisers. Usually we're not dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands of donors, and we tend to get to know our donors a lot better because it's small. You see the donations come in, and so that's an advantage that we have, that we can pick up the phone and say, hey, can we come and talk to you about this? And there you go. Another good tool to get started is, and I know I'm jumping a little bit, but this question sort of started this whole train of thought here, is just a survey. When was the last time you did a donor survey? So send out a survey, 10 questions, really short and simple, and I have a few samples to share. And you want to start the first few questions, which are very basic, warm-up questions, warm them up to the organization, and then address the subject of, did you know that you can leave a gift in your will? And would you like to receive more information about leaving a gift in your will to XYZ organization? So doing a survey is a very good way to gauge the potential that you have. And of course, the important part of it is not only sending out the survey, but having the follow-through afterwards. So be ready before you mail it out with all the tools all the information you need to send out to your donors after they respond to your survey. So that's another really easy, quick way to do it. And the survey, you can just add it on to your direct mail. You don't have to do a special mailing, which will cost you more money, but you can include it in your fall appeal. So you're killing two birds with one stone, and there you go. So let's see. Before I forget to finish this slide, how can a consultant help? So, you're alone in your shop and you're trying to keep your head above water, and you haven't slept in 3 months, and you're really stressed because there's probably another event that's being thrown on your plate that the board wants because it's the best thing ever and it's the greatest idea they've ever had in their life. But you also have in your goals to set up a plan giving program. So can a consultant help you? Absolutely. What they can do is do an initial presentation to the board to to present what the potential of a gift planning program has with your organization. Is this something you can do? Of course, but you know how sometimes boards are. They need to hear it from an external source. Um, Sorry if I'm being facetious, but you know, it's the truth. We've all been there, right? They can also provide a seminar to acquaint board members about the different giving instruments. They can provide you training. So if you don't feel that you have the knowledge and the skills, then they can provide you a little bit of training and get you, get you going. They can provide strategic advice on the program design and gifts. They can support you with donors, so it sort of accompany you at first, so until you get, warmed up and you feel more comfortable with it. And they can help you draft and review your marketing material. So, if this is something that could be feasible and you can afford, even if it's just a very small contract, and just to help you get off the ground, I would say invest in that. You've got nothing to lose. So if consider it if you're feeling like doing all this is overwhelming for you. Let me see. I see I have a couple questions. I want to try to address them now. So when is it appropriate to use an outside source for planned gift marketing? So I think, Debbie, what you're referring to is probably using a consultant or a writer that would develop your planned giving marketing. Am I understanding your question properly? If you can just write your answer that in the chat box, then I want to make sure I answer your question properly. I'll come back to your question after you've confirmed if my understanding was right. So there's another question. What are questions we should ask the board for gift planning program? I'm not sure I understand you. What questions would you be asking your board about whether you should be establishing your program? Is that what you're asking, Dawn? I'm not sure if I'm understanding that question very well. So, okay. So actually, you're not. Your job as the fundraiser in the organization coming to the board to stop and to get, I guess, for lack of a better term, getting permission to set up a planned giving program, but that's not the right term, obviously, is you want to educate them. You don't want to ask them questions. You want to educate them about what the potential is. So what I would say to you is come prepared with numbers. So we all know that board members are concerned with numbers. What is the opportunity cost of establishing a gift planning program, right? So you want to be able to come and say, I did a database analysis, and my analysis demonstrates that 70% of our donors are over the age of 55, and all of these are potentials for a bequest, for a gift in their will. Therefore, averaging, let's say, if you were to get, let's say, 5% of X number of donors that make a gift, an average gift in their will of $20,000, this is the potential that this could have. It all comes down to the numbers. So you want to do some projections in that way and then turn around and say, this is the investment we would need to do. If you need training, what is the training you need to get and how much is that going to cost? How much is it going to cost to do your marketing, et cetera? How does all of this integrate in your overall fundraising program? Again, don't forget, you want to come back to having a fully integrated fundraising program, which includes annual gift, major gifts, and planned gifts. So it's all about having a very robust, complete fundraising program. So when you sell that to your board, then if you come with solutions as opposed to asking them for solutions, you will not only reinforce your own credibility as a fundraising professional, but they will buy in a lot better and a lot faster. Let me just quickly look at some of the questions. Quickly, a local attorney has offered to speak at a lunch about planned giving options. Is that a successful method? Do people really respond to those invitations? Thank you for the question, Linda. Yes, actually, a lot of organizations do that. An organization I give to monthly organizes luncheons or even like a 1-hour session. So the idea is to really make it time efficient but informative. And what they'll do is they'll invite a lawyer or notary, whatever the case is where you are located, and the person will do a presentation, demystify gifts and will, etc. And that's part of the service that the charity will offer their donors. And donors respond to that. But what you need to consider is that it's successful when you have started talking about plan giving, when you started talking about bequests. So you can't just do it cold and just say, hey, we're inviting you to a will seminar. You want to start talking about this. So let's take a few steps back first. You want to start writing articles in your newsletter. You want to start sending, changing your donation coupon, saying, did you know you can make a gift in your will? Would you like to receive more information? So start a lot of that, sort of passive information that you're sending out. So then, and remember that you need to repeat a message at least 7 times before people actually understand it and register it. So start communicating that kind of information. And then once you've identified your prospects, then yes, inviting them to a luncheon or a tea. Something I'm very pro. I'm very supportive of the idea is a little afternoon tea where people can get together, have tea, little sandwiches, and then have a presentation by a professional. And so that's how it works. And then if the donor wants to get together with the lawyer, then they can make an appointment, and then it goes on from there. So that is a very good way of giving that option to your donors. So who are your prospects? We kind of touched on this already. Your donors who are over the age of 50, if you're talking about bequests, you want to go get them, try to identify the ones that are over the age of 50, people who have donated annually for a long time, or even donors who give monthly. They're also a very good prospect. So you want to make sure that that they know about this. They can also be, I would even go on to say, reach out to your current board members. They're prime prospects. They are committed to your cause. They're volunteering. And they would be a good group of people that you can start with. If they're not giving right now annually, then this is a good way for them to make a significant gift, and that can be their contribution to the organization. Talk to your past board members and your founders and previous executive directors. There are also very good prospects. So older donors, mid-level donors as well, and donors who make small but repeated gifts. So those are all great prospects. I'm sure if you look within your database and you've been seeing over the last few years giving regularly, they will be the ones that will jump on board. So marketing obviously is key. We've touched on this. So the 4 components of a good marketing program are continuity, consistency, repetition, effect. So by continuity, what we're talking about is it shows the recipient that each individual marketing effort is part of a whole. So you want your plan giving, I'm going to stick to just bequest. You want your bequest marketing to be part of an overall marketing plan within your organization. You don't want it to be something as a one. It has to be integrated, like your fundraising plan. You want to be consistent. The message should be consistent visually and in terms of content. Same language, and for heaven's sake, simple language is important. And also the same look. Always be consistent because people will retain that a lot more. Repetition, once the process of marketing has begun, it must be repeated over time. So like I said before, a person needs to hear the message 7 times in order to register. And the cumulative effect. So no single marketing effort is responsible for causing an act or develop a positive impression. So it's all the pieces put together. So all marketing efforts have a cumulative. Occasionally, it has to be consistent. It must be done. Marketing must be done frequently. What you want, which is a bequest. So keep in mind, though, like you're probably freaking out a little bit right now, and I really don't want you to freak out. Don't take all of this that I've been telling you as if you have to do everything. Okay? These are suggestions. You have to decide what you can do and what you want to do with the resources you have at your disposal. If all you can do for the time being is write an article in your organization newsletter, then that's all you need to do. That's all you want to do. Don't try to be everything to everybody, because then you're just going to drive yourself absolutely bananas, and you're not going to have the results that you want. So here's something very quickly, and I see, my goodness, it's already 1:55. I only have 5 minutes left. I need an entire day for this. 10 Commandments of Plan Giving Marketing. And this wasn't, I did not come up with it. I cannot take credit for this. This is Phyllis Friedman, someone I used to read a lot of her blogs. She doesn't seem to be blogging all that. But here are the 10 Commandments to Plan Giving Marketing. So you have to rethink what the age of 60, 70, 80. So people are living on much longer than they used to. So you have to think about how they like to be communicated. You have to use serif font. So what is serif font? This font you're reading in my slides, that's serif. Why? Because it's easier to the eye, okay? And when you're talking about an older population, sometimes their vision is starting to decrease, and this is a lot easier for them to read. You also don't want to reverse your white type out of color. You want to use plain English. Do not get technical. Focus on everything that is emotional. You want to design for skimmers. People they're not going to read a long document. Just like the fundamental principles of direct marketing apply to this. You have to address unspoken donor objections inside your copy. Okay, why wouldn't someone want to give? So think about possible objections and how can you address them in your copy. Provide suggested bequest language. And again, you will find tons of samples online of something like this. Make the materials your own. So your materials should reflect your organizational culture and the feel that you want to project. Okay. Use testimonials. Testimonials are incredibly powerful. Like with anything in fundraising, they're just as equally powerful in plan giving marketing any other fundraising. And always include a call to action. Now, there's 3 extras. Always be real in your communications with donors. Don't try. They will see right through it, and it'll turn them off. In your newsletters, include always, if you're writing an article on bequest, tell them, remember, organization XYZ in your will. Always. And show the face of your work. Show the impact. So something I like to sell is sell the sizzle, not the steak. And for all you vegetarians, I'm sorry if this offends you. Really, you want to sell what the dream, not what it really is. So you're not selling the bequest. You're selling the gift and the will. You are selling the vision of what the donor can help the organization realize through their gift. That is incredibly important. So again, sell the sizzle, not the steak. So let's land this plane as we are 1 minute away from 2 o'clock. So first and foremost, develop a simple but impactful marketing materials. Okay, keep it real. Add an option to online and offline donation forms for donors to request plan giving information. So if you've got online and offline donation forms, include that all the time. Have the back of the house organized. And it doesn't have to be super elaborate. It can just be a small spreadsheet you keep track of, or better yet, in your database that you can track expectancies, you can track communication touches, actions, and reporting. Make time to respond quickly to inquiries from your donors. Unfortunately, I've made that mistake where I moved faster than what I was capable of doing, and then I didn't respond. And then I missed an opportunity, and I will never do that again. Steward your donors and integrate it into a specific recognition plan for plan giving. So in a giving club within your entire recognition program or plan gifts. So call it something separate, brand it separately. And you can, and the way you'll brand it has to be true to what your organization does. Surround yourself with knowledgeable people. So if you don't feel that you've got enough knowledge, experience, and expertise in this, surround yourself with people who can help you along the way as advisors, or get a mentor. There's tons of very experienced fundraisers who will be happy to take you on as a mentee. Take it one step at a time. You can't do everything at once. So start with, make your list of things you want to do, and then figure out how you can get it done incrementally. Okay? Take the pressure off of you. You're not going to get everything done right away. And find one champion on your board that will back you up. So where I was before, the board chair was my champion. And then everybody was on board, and everybody loved the idea. And that helped the process a lot. Also, a couple of other things that I've added to this list since I did the slides yesterday is, don't feel bad about talking about leaving a bequest with your donors. It is difficult to talk about writing your will for your donors. They need to reflect on their own existence, their own death, but don't feel bad about it. They will have to eventually do it anyway. I mentioned about asking for a copy of the will. Walk the talk. Get your own house in order. As a fundraiser, do your own will. Go through the process yourself so you can speak to your experience as well. And start early, or just start. As soon as you can get started, even if it is just one article, or even just adding the option to your donation form for donors to request plan giving information. If that's all you can do this fiscal year, that's fine. Get it started, but just do one thing, and then make it roll. And let's see. All right, so we are at 2:02. And now we've got time for questions. I tried to answer some of the questions as we went along, but let me just scroll to see what questions did I miss. Okay, so one question from Stephen. How do you market a plan giving program and recognize unrealized, realized bequest without offending or marginalizing annual donors without the means of a plan gift or a major gift? Well, so here's the thing. There's two things in your question here, Stephen. First of all, like we said at the beginning of the session, a bequest and most plan gift vehicles are out of assets. And everybody has some form of asset, okay? So, because let's explain a little bit how a bequest works. When you pass away, all your assets are deemed sold when you pass away. So if you have a home, a car, you've got a retirement plan, et cetera, all of that are your assets. And so the bequests are made out of all of the liquidation of all of those things. And so that's how you end up often being worth a lot more when you pass away than when you're alive, because when you're alive, you're making gifts out of your current revenue, out of your disposable income. And so so it's not because it's not about a plan gift is not about the person's current means, it's what their future means are. Okay, so let's demystify that. Now, the root of your question is, how do you do it? How do you recognize the donors without offending anyone? I have never once seen an annual giving donor feel bad about not giving a bequest, because they may not be able to do it now, but they might be able to do it at a later date. You don't know that. The thing is that you want to recognize them, because if you don't, you have a duty to recognize your plan giving donors just like every other donor, for one, and for two, it's also a good way for your other donors to see that this is another way that they can contribute to your organization later on. So it plays double duty. So recognition is important, and if someone is going to feel bad, they're going to come and talk to you, or they might end up stopping giving. But then if they would get upset at that, they probably weren't as committed to your organization. A donor that is really, really committed to your organization will not be offended by seeing other donors. If anything, in my experience, donors have found that to be inspiring and motivating. And also it gave your organization that credibility, that to know that other donors are so committed and that they believe so much in your organization that they're willing to give even after they're gone. So look at it as as something positive, and you'll see how other donors will jump on board. So someone is asking about getting help creating plan giving policies. Where can they get help? Well, you can get help you can either get a consultant to help you do that, but I would say if you're a member of AFP or any other of these, or CASE or any other professional associations, oftentimes in the resources they will have sample policies. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You really don't have to start from scratch. Or better yet, ask a fundraiser in a university or a hospital or another organization that has a plan giving program, and ask them for a sample of your policy that you could use as inspiration for you to draft your own. You don't have to start from scratch. So really it's all about networking and trying to find someone else that does it, and then just using that as inspiration. Better yet, you can even write to me. I can give you some sample policies. I've got tons and tons of examples because that's how I developed mine. I didn't write my policies from scratch. That's the beauty of our sector. We all are very sharing. We all share a lot of our resources and we help each other out. So if you want, Don, send me an email and I'll send you the policies that I have, and then you can adapt it to your own organization's need. So someone here is saying, we looked at setting up an endowment with our local community foundation, but they keep the corpus of the fund for themselves, giving us only the interest. Is that typical? Well, yeah. So what they do is they don't keep it for themselves. They manage it on your behalf. And as a rule of thumb, they have to usually, like, even if you were to manage it yourself, you would keep the capital in the fund, and then you would only use a percentage, which is usually approximately 4 or 5% depending on where you are. So that is typical. You don't want to use the capital because the idea is that the capital is invested and you only use the interest that is generated from the investments. So that is typical of an endowment fund. What you want to do is, if you're talking to a community foundation, and you're talking to your own bank, for instance, or your own financial planners for your organization, is you want to compare the management fees. So what is more advantageous for you, and where, if you've got, for instance, if your organization has investment policies, for instance, here at Greenpeace, any investments, they look at the portfolio, because obviously they don't want their funds to be invested in, say, oil, for instance, or things like that, right? So you want to look at that in terms of, you want to have that discussion with the community foundation or even with your bank or whoever manages your funds. It has to go in line with your own organization's investment policy. The question, Paul, any specific suggestion on how to convince the board to invest in a plan-giving program when the payoff is 10 years from now and there are current more urgent financial urgencies? Awesome question. That's the $10 million question, isn't it, Paul? You know what? And here's a confession. That's exactly the challenge we're having here at Greenpeace. Although this is a very large organization, every Greenpeace office in every different country is a small shop, really. Like this, some Greenpeace offices only have 1 or 2 fundraisers. And what they are grappling with is exactly that the executive director is like, well, we have urgent annual needs. I can't, if I only have 2 fundraisers, I cannot put both of them into, going to get a gift that's only going to get realized in 10 years. Here's what you do. Here's the argument that I always do. At one point, you're going to be 10 years down the line, and you're going to be always chasing your tail for the current needs. it's about investing. Like, let's say if you were to sit down and look at everything you do and you break it down of how much time you spend in marketing, how much time you spend in your gift, how much in your annual campaign, how much time you spend in, is there a way to rejig things so that you can invest 15% of your time in plan giving? Okay, like it, and so by starting the conversation now, then yes, you're not pulling away from your annual needs. You're just rejigging a little bit because eventually you'll get to 10 years from now. You will have missed all those opportunities. So that's why I was saying earlier, responding to someone else's question, do some data mining. Okay? So that's what I did when I started at my previous job. I had a Griffin report. So this Griffin report, if you've never heard of this amazing company that they're out of Ottawa, and what they'll do is they'll pull your data, your donor database information for the last 10 years, for instance. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bloomerang does this as well. And they will slice and dice your database in all kinds of different ways and give you strategies of what you can do to improve your plan giving program. And it didn't cost a lot of money, actually. It really didn't. Under $3,000. And it gave me strategies to and it told me also who are the prospects for my plan giving program. So then you can look at them and just say how much potential these donors have of making a gift later on. And then if you look at the lifetime value of your donors, then you can plan accordingly. Then by having all of this information, you can present that to your board and say, this is, if we were to implement a plan giving, so by showing the potential of how much they can bring in the long term is a good way of convincing board members. I hope that answers your question. Here's another one. My CEO and board are already in support of starting a plan giving program. Yes, awesome. What are some actionable steps to take within the first year to get the program going? So first things first is marketing it. First thing you have to do. So how do you market it? Start writing simple articles about, did you know that you can leave a gift in your will? This is what what can happen. This is what we'd be able to do if you left a gift in your will. Look how easy it is. So you can start writing short articles and start planting the seed in your donor's mind. You can, like I mentioned before, you can start adding that tickler in your donation coupons for your donors to ask for information on leaving a gift in their will for you. You can also reach out to lawyers in your area, in your community, and provide them with information of how they can talk to their clients about when they write a will that they can leave a gift. So these are very simple ways that you can launch your program, really. And of course, you can do this. You can either do it at large, or if you have time, target it by identifying some donors, and based on the prospects list that I shared earlier, identifying who those people are in your database and sending them a survey. So get them going on a survey, or even just writing them a letter. Hey, did you know that we accept gifts in the will? This is how this is why we want to offer this to your donors, and this is why we think that you'd be interested in this. Those things like this that you can do that is not extremely time consuming. It does require thought, granted, but these are simple ways that you can get it done. Let's see, other questions. Asking for a bequest uncomfortable for donors. It can be uncomfortable for donors, but most of the time I would say it's more uncomfortable for the fundraiser. So but what's important is that you have to make sure you've done your due diligence. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you have provided the donor with a lot of information. It takes a long time before the donor knows exactly that you can accept gifts in their will. So the biggest issue we'll find, and I think you're writing this, I know some of our board members felt uncomfortable when we were talking about reaching out to donors and to establish a plan giving through bequest. Well, here's the thing. It's not a people feel uncomfortable A, asking, and B, talking about death. Okay, so change the paradigm. So change the narrative. Okay, what do I mean by that is look at it like from a glass half full as opposed to glass half empty. And what I mean by that is focus on what the organization could accomplish if your donors made a gift in their will, if they were to leave a legacy to your organization, what would the organization look like? So here's an example, and this is not an exercise that I came up. It was actually this great fundraiser named Robbie Haley, which maybe a lot of you have heard before. But this is an exercise that she does with board members, and she shared it with fundraisers at a few sessions, where you get your board to sit down and write on a piece of paper how much they give right now to the organization. This is all done confidentially. They all do it themselves. They don't share this in with anybody. And then you ask them to write down what would be an exceptional gift that they could give to your organization. Okay? And you let them reflect on this, right? And then you ask them, what would I, as a fundraiser in this organization, need to do to get you to make that exceptional gift? So basically, you're putting them in the place of the donor, and by doing that exercise, it kind of diffuses that discomfort. Okay, and so that's an idea of an exercise. So you always want to teach your donors. Let me rephrase that. You always want to teach your board members how to help you in fundraising by putting them in the shoes of a donor, which they are really. And in my experience, when I've done that, the switch happened, and then they understood how important and how easy it can be. Okay, so I hope that helps, Jennifer. I'm trying to scroll. Is it appropriate to include Remember XYZ in IRS donation documents? You can include the Remember Us in your will in any communication, in any and all communication that is appropriate in that way. So I would say yes, definitely. Any other questions? Am I missing? Question: Is the process different for a church versus a nonprofit organization? I don't believe so. If there are registered charities, the process is still the same. And actually, in my experience, faith-based organizations usually do really, really well when it comes to plan giving and bequests. So, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the charitable status for churches in the U.S. is different than the one in Canada. So unfortunately, I don't want to speak to that effect because I'm not an expert in that. But my guess is that, yes, the process is the same. I would encourage you to perhaps reach out to another church if you're working at a church organization, and just double check that. I really don't want to. I don't want to say something that is completely wrong. So unfortunately, that is one of my limitations in that way. Let me see. What is the best way to respond to a donor who wants to give you a more complex plan gift than your organization is ready to do? Okay, that's a really good question. So do you walk them back down to a simple bequest? I'm concerned about not coming across robust on our plan giving program. So here's the thing: you need to do a risk assessment in this case. So if here's several things to consider before you talk them down, because it's kind of like someone wants to give you $50,000 and you don't know how to manage it, right? How are you going to do this? Do you want to say no to the $50,000? No, of course not. So what you want to do is perhaps, if the gift seems more complicated than what you can currently handle, okay, Go back to your board. Is there anybody in your board that can help you through this process? Is there an expert that you can either hire or get pro bono to help you manage this gift? Of course, it depends on the complexity of the gift, okay? You also want to go back to see, does it fit with your gift acceptance policy? If it doesn't, then the answer is pretty straightforward. But if it's just a question of you not feeling comfortable because you don't have enough knowledge or whatever, go find someone in your community that can help you through this. If you think and if you feel strongly that what you would be able to do with that gift could really, really elevate your organization. Okay? If in the end your risk assessment results in something that could be very timely, very costly for your organization, then you're better off backing away from the gift. Don't forget, as you know, I know we always say as fundraisers we are told that we need to get as many gifts as possible. But if it's not in the best interest of the organization, you have a responsibility and an ethical and professional responsibility to back away and say, this is not right for my organization. Okay? So I hope that answers your question. So Rita is saying that in Detroit they have a Leave a Legacy Plan Giving Roundtable, and they have many resources. In Canada, if you're in Canada, the CEGP also has a Leave a Legacy program, and they are a wonderful resource. So I highly recommend you member, if not get connect with people there. Paul, do you win a prize for the best question? I wish I could give you something, but here's that. You've got bragging rights. So is that good enough? Let me think. Other question? Thoughts on when it's appropriate to add a dedicated plan giving officer to your staff? Very good question, Stacy. I would say when you started generating enough revenue that warrants the expense. You have to look at your entire program and how much you have grown your plan giving program and what the expectancies are for the next few years and your overall revenue for your fundraising program. So you might want to consider maybe having a plan giving officer on a part-time basis at first until that program grows, and then the program is generating enough revenue to warrant it being full-time. So you want to consider something like that. You could also consider outsourcing it. There are also a lot of fundraisers that are not necessarily consultants, but they're kind of like they do small contracts here and there. I was doing that for an organization when I was consulting. I had one organization where I was their in-house fundraiser 1 day a week, and so I managed their things to the best of my abilities on 1 day a week. It was a really, really small shop, and we did some pretty good, amazing stuff in just that 1 week. So there's different ways that you could structure it, but basically is you have to look at your entire fundraising program and how evolved it is. It really depends on your own reality. I think I can't see any other questions, and we are at 2:20. If there are any other questions, type them in or forever hold your peace. Of course, here are my my contact informations are here. Steven's gonna send the slides later today or tomorrow, and you'll have my contact information, my email, my Twitter handle, my LinkedIn. If you have additional questions afterwards, please don't hesitate to write. I'm very happy to continue answering questions offline, and if you want samples or anything, or even I have a great Dropbox resources. It's basically the last 14, 15 years of everything I've accumulated over the years. I'd be happy to give you access to that, and you can have a lot of samples, everything that has to do with fundraising.
Well, that was awesome. I appreciate you answering questions beyond the 2 o'clock hour, and thanks to all of you who hung around and asked questions. It was really fun to hear the dialogue between the attendees and you, Ligia. So this was really awesome. Lots of great information. I definitely learned a lot just listening in. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day to share all your knowledge about planned giving. This was a lot of fun.
It's my absolute pleasure, and I wish you all a lot of success.
And please do reach out to her. Obviously, she's a wealth of knowledge, and she can get you hooked up with that Dropbox resources and all that good stuff. And do check out our website. We've got a lot of great resources on our website as well. We've got a lot of downloadables. We have, of course, our weekly webinar series, our podcast, and our newsletter. We'd love for you to check out all the goodies on the Bloomerang website as well. And I want to highlight the next webinar that we have coming up. We're off next week, but we are back 2 weeks from today, April 14th. Hard to believe it's April already. But we've got Claire Axelrod. She's going to talk about stewardship, which was a lot about what Ligia talked about today. But we're going to dive into stewardship specifically, because if you do what Claire is going to talk about in 2 weeks, I think those planned gifts will start to roll in for sure. So check that out. Do register for that. It's totally free, totally educational. We've got lots of other webinars scheduled out well in advance. You'll see them on that page. Just click our resources tab and click on webinars, and you may find a topic that is interesting to you. So thanks again for hanging out with us. This was a lot of fun. Do look for an email from me later on this afternoon. I'll be sending out the recording as well as the slides, so you'll be able to look at all that good stuff. But for now, we'll say goodbye. Have a great rest of your afternoon and a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you again in a couple weeks. So see you soon.